This case gives me mixed vibes and I'll tell you everything about it. So today we're going to talk about DeepCool CH170, and when I say mixed vibes and mixed feelings in terms of positive and negative stuff about this case, basically it's nothing that drastical that will pull you in a conclusion not to buy this case. But these are some things that I noticed while building cases, builds or anything similar to that I like to give you and share my experience and to give you some heads up what you can expect. So just to start it off, the case is nice, minimalistic, love the digital screen, love the minimal I/O ports here on the front, and it's really simplistic, small footprint. You can actually place an Assassin 4 inside without a single problem, no matter the orientation. And the possibility to switch around the power supply, 3-slot GPU, I mean, that's all outstanding, and big thumbs up to DeepCool for that. But what I don't this is on personal level, but maybe helps you decide, is that it has not too much screws like we had one case with 23 screws just to place a motherboard inside. But it has 4 screws to remove this bottom plate. For some strange reason, you have to remove it. And then you have more additional screws to remove the side panels. Where did the panels with pegs go? I mean, we have cases that have tempered glass just on pegs and they hold perfectly fine. So nothing falls off on those cases. Even peeling off the plastic foil off, still tempered glass holds. So why they didn't just place pegs here on the side and fixate this bottom cover, this bottom part with the digital screen, totally without being able to remove it. It's good to have the possibility to remove it just for the modularity and options to flip it around or do whatever you want to do. But to remove it to access everything else, that's on a different level. And yeah, that's not the downside, but something that I think it's totally unnecessary. And then we go with the airflow direction, because first of all, what you think is this case, okay, it doesn't have closed side panels, right? But you would expect that in a vertical position of a case that the airflow would be a chimney effect, even though on their website they have a completely different story regarding the airflow. It goes from one side and then it exhausts at the top and on the other side, so it's kind of everywhere. But first I wanted to place the Assassin 4 to normal position, which means that it blows out the air at the bottom. As you can see, all 3 sides, 3 out of 4, are blocked. The only exhaust that could be is here at the back. So this creates something that isn't viable or isn't appreciated in airflow management, is that the air bounced off, pushed out of the cooler will just bounce back to the cooler. And that doesn't make sense. So I flipped the Assassin 4 completely, which came to another scenario where I couldn't place the power supply in regular position. I had to place it on top in horizontal, vertical, I don't know what position, because I didn't have enough space. Because if you flip the Assassin 4, it goes above the borders of the motherboard. So yeah, there's that. But I managed to do that, everything, and even with everything that I mentioned right here, it performed outstandingly good. So let's quickly jump to this part. So AGST Extreme Edition CPU, AMD Ryzen 9 7900X3D, went up to 80 degrees with the clock speed 4775 MHz. GPU, which is Palette GeForce RTX 4080 Super Infinity Trio C, up to 78 degrees. CPU, normal thermals. GPU went a bit above, so I would say like 3 to 5 degrees higher, because it doesn't have any additional fan inside the case to get that airflow inside, which is, I would say, okay. And this is 30 minutes test in AGST Extreme Edition system stability test. So yeah, and then we go to Cinebench. We get completely different results when we're talking about the thermals. CPU started at 68, it ended up in the last 9 benches at 69. Clock speed was going throughout 4775 MHz, and the Cinebench score started at 25,959. It went a bit down to 800s, 900s, eventually passing 26,000, which is outstanding because we're having an air cooler performing almost close, very close to a 360 in a small chassis. You have to take that also into consideration. And taking that into consideration, because some 360 AIOs pair up to 26,100, 200. The new ones that I reviewed go way higher. But this is good. This is really good, because we're having a case that you wouldn't expect to, have this type of cooling and such scores. So this is why I mentioned I have mixed feelings about it, because you're having a bit extra, I would say 5 to 10 minutes to untie everything and to place everything inside, and then you add those minutes for placing the components inside, reorganizing the cables and similar stuff like that. But then you assemble everything, you push the power on button, install everything that you need, and you get outstanding thermals for this type of chassis. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying these thermals are outstanding for a regular case that has 360 radiator and bunch of fans that have proper airflow direction and everything is just perfectly fine, right? So for this type of case, this is really good, I do have to admit. The digital screen could be better, because on the Assassin 4 Vapor Chamber, I think that's the one, they did a completely redesign of the digital screen, what I saw at Gamescom and Computex, and I dig that much more. That's on personal level, so I won't go into that. You can choose if this suits you, I'm fine with that. And just to clarify, the DeepCool logo as well as the power on button light up, you can't change the lights because these colors are fixed. And yeah, that's it. So it comes in black and white, and you can choose out of those two colors, which is quite solid because they are keeping the color scheme throughout. And as you can see, the digital screen also is in full white, and you can nicely see the lettering. Talking about the digital screen, you have three options. You have CPU, GPU and power supply. CPU can show temperature, power, usage, frequency, and frequency eventually swaps with fan RPMs. GPU, the same, temperature, power, usage, frequency and fan RPM. And then we have power supply, temperature, power, usage and fan RPM. Unfortunately, the power supply doesn't show any sensor statistics, because I think it has to be connected somehow to something, and the software being used to actually choose which of these components will show here, because it can't go into a shuffle or random or whatever. You have to choose one product that will show here. Is the same one as the Mystique 360. Now for some quick specs before we wrap it up. We're talking here about a case that really has a quite nice small footprint comparing to the parts that are inside. 250 x 200 x 380, 3.4 kilos. We have ABS plus SPCC material that's designed out of. Mini ITX motherboard support. Then on the front I/O we have two USB 3.0, one USB Type-C Gen 2 and one combo audio jack for microphone and headset, and power on button, which is straightforward, quite easy. 2.0 and 3.5 hard drive or SSD, you can go one out of those, or front 120 fan on top right here basically, and you can choose one out of those three. Expansion slots, we have three of those, and when we're talking about that, depending on the power supply, it depends how the GPU will be long. So the length of the GPU is 305 millimeters if you go with SFX or SFXL power supply. If you go with ATX, then it's limited to 230. The width is 138 millimeters in both scenarios, and the thickness is 65 millimeters in 3 slots in both scenarios. So that's good. Talking about the power supply, ATX can go maximum up to 140, SFX, SFXL. Fan support, on top you can go with 120, rear 2 120, bottom 120 and side 2 120. And for the side you have two rails that are on 4 screws, so each rail has 2 screws. You can go up to 240 radiator without a problem. And the interesting part is CPU cooler height 172 millimeters, which is kind of obvious because we can place an Assassin 4, and for a brand that has such an outstanding CPU tower cooler and to build such small chassis, not to be able to place an Assassin 4 inside would be a total waste of case and space. So yeah, they did it. They managed to place the Assassin 4 inside, and I think it's revolving mostly around the Assassin 4. But regardless of that, pros and cons, you know everything. The negative stuff that I mentioned, the cons, aren't in any way affecting the performance. This is just something that will give you some extra food for your thought to decide what kind of airflow you're going to go, what will suit you best, and of course the screws that need to be removed, that's something completely different. Just 5 to 10 minutes while you figure out how everything goes, and that's it, guys. It's up to you to decide. I'm really digging the minimalism, the design, the digital screen, and the final finish, the quality. It's always there from DeepCool, so I won't go into that. That's big thumbs up again. Just these two parts when we're talking about the orientation of the airflow and a bit too much screws. Yeah, not like 23, but still, you know, it's somewhere close. So yeah, guys, thanks for watching today's video. Links are in the description for the CH170 white and black if you decide to go with it, and of course the Assassin 4 white and black, so you can pair that up quite nicely because it can look quite nice. And that'll be all. As I stated, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, click the notification bell, and I'll see you quite soon in another one. Bye bye.